Good morning. This is Michelle Love with KPCALP in Petaluma, a free-range radio and TV station. And thank you so much for joining me. You are listening this morning to Dynamic Change, and this show is about psychological and emotional patterns that can be affecting life that I think are very common ground for many people. And I utilize my background to help you understand how you can move through these kinds of patterns in a way where they can be resolved and you can have healthier patterns and experiences in your life so you have more empowerment, more fulfillment. And my background is I am a certified trauma-informed wellness coach, self-defense instructor, fitness trainer, and I have a degree in psychology. And so what I like to do with the show is really break down life experiences. There are so many common threads that we all go through that, or we know someone, or they're, it's a friend, it's a relative, it's our personal experience, whatever it is, and we're dealing with these layers in life. And the more we heal these different layers collectively, in my opinion, the more everyone thrives. The more society will thrive, the more we thrive in our life, where we can really enjoy life in ways that maybe we've been held back, maybe in ways where we were not able to understand how to ask for what we needed, how to feel worthy of that, how to handle depression or anxiety, or maybe we grew up with a really intense abuse pattern. And, to unpack these things and develop tools, I have a degree in psychology and I've worked in the wellness field for over 30 years. And if you would like more information on me, you can go to my website, dynamicchangewellness.com, to see, the classes I provide, the different types of wellness coaching. And basically my goal is to really empower people, to really show you the psychology and how it melds into our somatic experience. So I talk about somatic experience a lot because it's so important. I was very fortunate. I grew up around holistic medicine and was exposed to it at a very young age. And what I learned about it was how our emotional, we can call it baggage, okay, because I think we all understand that term, it truly is baggage that lives in our body. Because I think a lot of times within society, not currently, but what we're learning, and in years before, there was more of this impression that you could just deal with your psychology issues, emotional issues, with your mind, and not really understanding until just lately. There's a wonderful, I think it's called the Healing Center, that they do. I got my trauma-informed certification through them. And they're doing a lot of education right now that is really profound about the somatic experience, which is what I always believed. And when I first started studying psychology, working in the psychology field, and working with the body all these years the way I did, like all the different layers of it, I always believed that your body, the cells in your body have memory. And this is where your emotional baggage lives. And that's why we have these like subconscious, kind of unconscious responses that can be so hindering in our life, because the trauma can get triggered. If there's trauma in there, the memory, and then we're responding to this loop of unresolved trauma and somatic experience within our body. So it's not just this mental thing that you can separate out and just say, oh, if I get it in my mind, then I'll make a better choice. I will not do that again, or I'll learn to ask for what I really need or feel worthy of what I really want in life. So there's, rather than that idea, trying to just intellectualize stuff, it's not how the body holds emotion. So the mind holds a particular thought pattern, belief system around the emotional experience. And then our body remembers the emotional experiences throughout your life. And we get imprinted on it. So when we're young, especially ages 0 to 7, I believe it's your whole life, but those are extremely impressionable for your psyche years, 0 to 7 years old. And so whatever you're processing at that point, and people in general, there's been a lot of, we're not perfect people, right? And people have done the best they could, and everyone's still learning, everyone's still growing, everyone's still healing. But there has been, these backlog of kind of issues. I think abuse patterns, anger patterns, certain particular types of patterns that have been expressed within society, within humans all across the world even, and they have played out, and we've been working on it for years, dissecting it, trying to understand, trying to educate around mental health issues, and thinking about, how can this shift and change? Because that's really what I see with the younger generation these days. And I'm always rooting for the younger generation, because even when the adults are kind of like, I don't agree with all the new concepts. I think that happens every generation, right? Every generation, the adults are kind of like, why? Why? I don't agree with you. Because there's this rebel side of the youth. I really respect the rebel. I never really grew out of the rebel. And because I love new ideas. I love new approaches to things. I love that fresh energy. And I really think that's what the youth does. And I think that is very needed. It's very vital. It's very important to growth. Okay, it's very important to the growth of the mind, the consciousness, the overall beliefs, the overall experience in life. So I really honor them. So even though there can be, I think, societal rubs when this happens for generations past, generations to come, current, there's always going to be that little like, ooh, this doesn't quite fit, because it's not meant to fit. When something is adjusting, when something is shifting, transforming, it's like the butterfly being in the cocoon, right? And they're transforming. Transformation doesn't fit the old mold. And transformation, or the rising of the phoenix, right? Transformation in ourselves is cathartic. It is healing. And often the patterns that society has been running in certain ways, it needs to shift and change and grow. Like, to me, I'm like, domestic violence needs to stop. Just does. It's too old. I mean, just there's certain things that I really think we need to grow out of. Sexual assault we need to grow out of it. It's old. We can be better people. We can be kinder. We can educate ourselves. We can find solutions for the people that need kind of some rehabilitation, however that plays out, but whatever we need to do to figure things out, to heal ourselves so we are as healthy as possible for all the people that we come across in our lives, so we're consciously raising our children with the goal of them feeling strong within themselves, knowing who they are, enjoying their creative new ideas that can be applied towards their life, and maybe doing some things better. And so I think it's just really powerful to always be open, as open-minded as we can, and always put our best foot forward, and just be present with working towards solutions and healing. So that's what I'm thinking. And so what I want to share with you today is another particular behavior experience, behavior pattern. And when I do this show every Wednesday at 11 o'clock, and again, this show is called Dynamic Change, and it's on KPCALP in Petaluma, and my name is Michelle Love. And this show, I discuss psychological patterns, and I break them down, how they affect us on a somatic level, how they affect the mind, the thinking, the behavior. And again, to go back to when you are trauma informed, and you can look it up, there's a lot of information available these days around that. And what being trauma informed means is they're talking about the unresolved loop of the nervous system when there has been trauma. And this doesn't have to be extreme trauma, but something for that person has been traumatic, and particularly, extreme trauma. What does that do to our nervous system? So when we get educated about trauma, understanding that there's ways to really resolve the trauma and to really stop that, it gets stuck in a loop. So when there's a traumatic event of the child, let's say that, and there was no resolution because no one within that situation knew how to handle it better. And I think this is commonplace. I think this is not something to judge or put down. I think it's commonplace. And we have to have a compassion for ourselves, understanding for ourselves, and know that everyone's done the best they can. But we can now learn, when we get educated around trauma and how trauma therapists approach resolving trauma from childhood. Because when a trauma happens, it's almost like it gets embedded and affects our nervous system. So rather than understanding how to be, self-regulated, because I talk a lot about self-regulation, and that's why I do a lot of guided meditations within the show, is I want to show people how to self-regulate and how to start regulating the nervous system and working with these layers of the emotional baggage so there can be resolution. So when you get information about being trauma informed, what they're talking about the same thing that I've actually been bringing to the table, because I think it's so important, and I would love everyone to feel so much better and know how to obtain it. And in order to obtain it, we have to realize that when there's something that's been traumatic that has happened, it affects the nervous system in a way that it doesn't know how to just kind of work all the way through it, because you have to work all the way through it. A lot of times with trauma, it happens and there's like this shutting down. Let's say the child went through domestic violence and it was too much for them to process. Totally understandable, right? So they shut down. There's no resolution. There's no one to talk about. Let's just say, there's no savior in this moment. So there's no one for them to explain it to them, to say, oh, okay, that wasn't okay, but we can talk about your feelings and let you know it wasn't your fault or whatever. Like, to get to the kid to the other side of understanding it and processing it fully through their nervous system. So the nervous system works in a loop. This whole, way that it will allow itself to come to that experience that was too stimulating, that was, triggering fight or flight within their nervous system, but the body has these ways of adapting and moving through that, right? But the way our society has handled trauma is they didn't understand how to complete the loop. And there is a necessary process. There's tools, there's breathing tools, there's, like ways to stimulate your body in a soothing way and breathe and get to the other side of that fight or flight. So, and I've done a show on fight or flight, and that's basically where you're just in total panic mode, right? You feel threatened. So it doesn't mean someone's necessarily has to be making you feel like you're going to die in that moment, but it is scary enough to where your nervous system is totally freaking out and having really intense anxiety. The body, maybe the blood pressure's up quite a bit. There's like a level of almost being so scared you could feel kind of terrified, right? You could get this from, an extreme car accident. You can get it from abuse. You can get it from, all kinds of a near-death experience. Like there's certain things that happen, but you can't avoid life. I really think that life in general has unavoidable degrees of trauma experience. Doesn't have to be extreme, but life is intense. So, but the thing is, we have an actual way of processing it through our psyche, through our emotional body, and through our nervous system, to bring it all the way complete. And that's what trauma therapists do, is they work it through the nervous system and they show people how to self-regulate and kind of complete that situation that never got resolved from the childhood. So my example of, this is an imaginary example, is just a child experiencing domestic violence as a kid and never having any mental clarity around it. Because, as a child, the kid's going to think it was their fault, that they did something wrong, that if they try to be better, if they try to be more cautious, if they're more hyper vigilant, what can they do to avoid that? Because that did not feel good, right? So then they're adapting all this internal feelings, and not just thoughts, feelings and physiological responses in the body to not repeat that really painful experience and pattern. So think about if someone is trying to avoid something on a physiological level, neurologically and physiologically, right? So neurologically, it's mind. Your nervous system regulates your whole body experience. It regulates kind of like your blood pressure, your digestion. It's in charge of your body when you're resting, when you're sleeping. All these things are vital for our health. It regulates the adrenaline that's being pumped from the adrenals into your kidneys, into, the endocrine system of the body. Like, it's huge. It is such a big deal, our nervous system. Our nervous system is also very sensitive. And so when it goes through something really intense, it impacts it. That's why a lot of stress in life eventually wears us down. We're like, wow, like you can really feel it after a certain amount of time. Sometimes it's just residual built up stress. Sometimes it's not just an experience that was huge, right? And we can have these experiences where we really can feel the impact. It can affect our health, and it can have lifelong effects on your nervous system. And this can lead to people trying to self-medicate, which I also speak to a lot. Is I think the reason it is so vitally important that we do what we can to heal ourselves is I think that people, sometimes it's even like at a deep subconscious level, are not aware of how painful some of the stuff they've gone through has been, and so they're trying to cope and do the best they can with it. Sometimes what will couple with that, go along with that, is self-medication, and that can lead to, when the pain has been severe, and they could lead into substance abuse, alcoholism, and other addictions that are, involving self-harm. And so I really think the more tools we have to heal traumatic events, to heal trauma, to completely heal it, right? Not just like self-medicate. We're not healing it. We're coping. That might help us manage life a little bit, but it's really medicating, snuffing out, which only makes it turn into this boil of cysty, yucky stuff. I hate to say it, but it does, because it festers, right? And it still affects our life. We still feel the sickness deep down inside, where we maybe feel depressed or feel shame or feel guilt. There's something that's unresolved, okay? And things that are unresolved are a big deal, because they will forever cause the engine of that system to not work properly, to feel sick. It's kind of like your car. If you don't take care of your car, and there's something significantly going on in there, I mean, it messes up the function of the whole vehicle, right? So it's the same thing for us. We can't ignore when we've had something that needs to be dealt with. So when we don't feel good, it is an indication. So I wasn't anticipating to talk only about trauma. I actually had a particular topic that relates, of course, to this. But I hope I've brought some clarity, and I will do it more and more and more. I've been doing a lot of work with more and more certifications around trauma, but this has always been the stuff I have studied for over 30 years. I've studied on the somatic experience. So even when I studied psychology, I really enjoyed getting my degree in psychology. I always really appreciated those understandings, but I also knew intuitively and from all my experience of working with people that, the somatic trauma response was really so immensely important, that this is the strongest thing that needs to be really embraced, I think, within the mental health field. And there's more and more techniques all the time, where the rapid eye movement technique, the tapping technique, they're incorporating more and more breathing, nervous system techniques, because it really completes the healing for people. There's not just this mental approach to what's going on with them. They're dealing with the whole experience within their physiological body, the emotional body, and the mind. So there's such a deep level of resolution and healing that it is profound. And so this is why I will continue to speak about understanding trauma and how it affects us, and how we can heal from it and move beyond it and be self-regulated and feel strong. So, okay. So today I want to discuss, during my show, Dynamic Change, here on KPCALP in Petaluma, a free-range radio and TV station, I want to discuss giving over your power. And what I mean by that is sometimes we want to really do too much for other people in a way where we're giving over kind of a piece of ourselves. And it can be very detrimental. So I want to talk about that pattern. It's lovely how beautiful our hearts are and how much we want to help the people we love. But what empowers people the most, and I have talked about this quite a bit, because that's one of my specialties, is teaching people how to be empowered with their boundaries, how to be assertive, how to take care of themselves. Because when we do that, not only are you going to be 100%, which is huge, you've got to take care of yourself first, but it shows other people how to do it for themselves. It forces them to do their own work, which indirectly empowers them. So important. But this idea of giving over power, there's a couple different ways we can look at this. So the first way that I'd like to throw out there is, if you ever have felt that, like, I think this can be a relationship dynamic. It can be within friends. It can be romantic relationship. And this can also be a work relationship. So this is an interesting one. This can apply to everybody. But if you felt like when you were fully in your power, that it threatened the other people in the room, ego-wise, okay? So if you felt like, if I don't make myself a little bit smaller than my full potential, it's going to rock the boat, or they're not going to approve of me, they're not going to like me. The only way to get that love and acceptance or approval is to kind of sacrifice yourself and sacrifice your personal power. So this can bleed out into all kinds of, situations. It could be not saying what you think, not upholding your boundaries, feeling like, if I tell them what I really want, what I really think, what I, and this could be at work too. If I don't hold back, my boss is going to hate me because I've said too much. They don't want that much feedback, or, I got to stay in my lane, or whatever it is. The thing is, when we play it safe in life like that, we're not living to our full potential. And I'm not saying we got to rock the boat all the time. I'm just saying that powerful people like being within their own power. And I think there needs to be integrity with it. I don't like abuse of power at all. But integrity with it, which means expressing themselves in an honest, clear, powerful way, 100%, is them being 100% leaning into being healthy, taking care of themselves, allowing themselves to be all they can. You know what I mean? And this is the kind of stuff that really affects very healthy growth that is needed in life. We need it in the workplace. We need it in our friendships. We need it in our romantic relationships. We want to be empowered within ourselves. And sometimes you need to kind of push the envelope in order to take care of yourself, to say what you need, to say when something's too much. And so I do assertiveness training. I'm a self-defense instructor. It's one of my many hats. And so I talk to people about being assertive a lot. And I talk to them a lot about listening to their body. How does it feel in your body? When that person encroached upon your boundaries, when you just took it, as opposed to saying what you really wanted to say, telling them to back off, saying that idea, saying what you were really thinking. All these things are boundary issues. They all have to do with assertiveness. They all have to do with personal power and feeling like you deserve to take care of yourself. Feel good enough about yourself where you can do that level of self-care. So I think this is an extremely important issue in life. And so what I want to talk about is when we can identify that we need to enhance and be okay with expressing our personal power and our boundaries. They're connected, same thing. So I'm going to give you a couple different examples, and these are, of course, completely made up. I make up because I see this stuff in life all the time. I've always been very observant and naturally was inclined to understand psychology, and I naturally understood people quite a bit. So I always just pay attention because I want to learn. I always loved learning, and I loved helping people. And so I just see, all this stuff play out in life all the time. We love to think that we can avoid it, but it does. It comes up all the time. And we don't need to judge it. But learning how to change it, how to do it in a better way is the goal. In my opinion, is just be kind with yourself. And that's why I show these examples, is we need to get past judging ourselves, judging other people so much, and just really reach for integrity, reach for kindness, and how can we just grow and do it better? That's all. So, what I would like to say is, like, if you're in a work situation, that's my first example. So if you're you're at work and you feel like there is maybe something going on at work that is not working well, it's how everyone has done it. It causes a lot of mishap at work. Like, it's just not efficient, it's stressful, and it could be done so much better. And so emotional patterns, we're all like a puzzle piece. So when there is an emotional pattern that's dysfunctional, it plays with other dysfunctional pieces, and it fits very nicely. And this stuff plays out at work and everywhere. And I really think it's kind of an unconscious thing that we do, right? So we fit together in these ways: codependency, we have the same type of issues, whatever it is, but it fits together. Ew, we don't want to do that, right? Because it serves no purpose that of any kind of growth or feeling better in the end. We don't want to support each other's patterns that are dysfunctional. So, like for my imaginary scenario of work, when someone's at work, let's say that Phil, let's use the name Phil. I'm just imaginary person. Again, these are all imaginary people. Phil works at this company and he has a boss, and the boss is a people pleaser. Let's say that. So Phil's boss is a people pleaser, and he knows that there's this one person in the office that kind of slacks off. They're a little toxic. They like to, create a little drama. And when they do projects together, it really causes Phil and the other people within, the group that works together at this job to work harder, to be stressed out, to be less productive. And the boss isn't dealing with it. Like, everyone knows about it. It's like the elephant in the room. Everyone knows that there is this really annoying, uncomfortable, stressful hindrance to the work situation. And Phil is a brave person emotionally, and they're just kind of fed up because they're realizing that the stress and the annoyance of dealing with this type of scenario is really starting to affect their sleep. They're starting to feel cranky. They're, and these indications, and these, all my examples today are going to talk about when we start to feel mad, sick, or run down, when we feel even just cranky, when your body is holding more tension, when your stomach is upset, when your shoulders start to hurt, all these things are reflecting that you need to change something. Something is bothering you, and it is causing you to shift within yourself to cope. This is how this negativity is going to eventually affect you, because you're taking it in. Okay? So it's like an implosion of negativity. So when we are taking this toxic kind of stuff in, it has a detrimental effect. And they are indicators of we need to shift something in our life. So that is a really great time for Phil to say, I'm realizing that I'm starting to change, that this is becoming so toxic, it has to be dealt with. So at that point, Phil decides he's going to go talk to his boss, because he's just done with it. It's so overdone. So he goes and he talks with his boss, and he says, look, I'm really being affected by a pattern here at work, and I would like you to listen to me before you respond, and really understand that this is something that needs to be addressed, and I know it's your place to address it, and this will help the whole work environment. And I know I'm not the only person, but you're going to have to reach out to other people, I think, to, you could check in with them. But I think this is a consensus that we're all feeling, and I think you probably even know it. Just call it out and just say, I really appreciate you listening to me. Are you ready? And then Phil can say, his thoughts, and he can set that boundary for his own personal power of, I'm unwilling to be affected by this toxicity anymore. So this is him taking his personal power and asserting the boundary of, I will not work here. Sometimes you even have to say that. Say, I have a bunch of PTO right now. I can just take a vacation if this is, if this is not going to be dealt with right away. Like, I need a break. That's how big of a deal this is to me. I don't want to quit, but I may need to take a couple days off because I'm frustrated. I'm starting to feel really stressed out, like I could get sick. I'm run down. I'm getting tired of coming to work. I'm getting sick of being around this person. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, being honest with integrity and letting them know I have a boundary. Phil can say, I will have to start looking for another job if this does not change. Right now, I'm going to take a couple days off because I'm an excellent employee. I work really hard. I have some paid time off. I'm going to do this to take care of my health, mental health, physical health, whatever, and I would appreciate you taking care of this. How powerful is that, right? And that, that manager needs to handle it. That's his job. And so he empowers that manager, which is sitting there probably thinking, oh yeah, this is something I totally need to deal with. This is my job. He's totally called it out. He's taking care of himself. He's taking some days off. He's saying how it has to be dealt with, or he's going to look for another job. And maybe he's like just a top employee. Maybe this guy just is such a hard worker. He's, a good person. He's brilliant. He brings a lot to the job. And we need to know that about ourselves. We are all valuable people. So, Phil took his power in the workplace. And I've told this story, but I've done this before at jobs. And it completely changed the work environment. I was like blown away. But all I did was say what I needed to take care of myself and be brave enough to be that honest. And I think a lot of times we hold back. But when we really force ourselves to say what we know we need to say to take care of ourselves and really bring it to the table, you'll be shocked how much it'll actually, in a very healthy way, shift everything for the better. It'll blow your mind. And do it as an experiment. It's worth it. So I've seen it do dramatic things. So to me, that is emotionally courageous to be that assertive, because it's also expressing the vulnerability. Because it's scary at a job to be like, I may need to get another job. For a lot of people, not everyone has a lot of savings or whatever. Maybe that is a really terrifying idea, right? So hopefully we all have savings, and, we're not going to worry about that. But I'm just saying that these are vulnerable things, but there's a way to do it in your power that not only will you take care of yourself and open up energy. When you take care of yourself and you're in your power in a healthy way like that, it'll open up the energy in your life to where maybe, Phil takes a couple of days off, and then during those couple of days, because he moved that energy in his life by being assertive and taking care of himself, that he meets someone that offers him a position in their business that's way better. Because he opened up the energy, because he was willing to take care of himself. Because we become energetically and emotionally, even mentally stagnant when we don't push ourselves through particular things. And that stagnation keeps you in situations. And when we remove the stagnation with our mindset, our behavior, our willingness to do something maybe a little uncomfortable, it will create a new flow of energy, and new things can come in. It pushes out the stagnation, so there's room for something better to come in. Very, very powerful. Better energetically. It's an energy thing. So in life we have this energy, right? And if you have a bunch of garbage in the way of in your life surrounding you, if you're sitting in a pile of garbage, there's no room for anything good to get to you. That's no fun, right? We want the good to come to you. So you want to have the space open, and you want to feel worthy of it, and you want to feel good about yourself. So having boundaries for yourself like this, being in your power, is what it's all about, to create that opening for the energy. So my other example before we finish today is I want to make up another imaginary name. And Heather. Heather's going to be my other imaginary person. And again, you're listening to Dynamic Change. My name is Michelle Love on KPCALP in Petaluma. And this is my imaginary example of giving over your power. So Heather has a friend that she grew up with, and her friend had a really difficult childhood. And Heather knew all about it because they grew up together and it was her best friend. But her friend really struggles. You know, her friend, let's say, grew up with parents that had substance issues. So it was just all a myriad of abuse patterns, and it was just really unstable and hard, right? So Heather always really loved her friend and really felt for her because it just wasn't a stable home environment. So Heather, as they become adults and everything else, is always periodically there for her friend when she's really going through difficult times. Let's say she loses her job a lot, or she's in relationships that tend to be fairly abusive, you know. So there's like these struggles, and Heather wants to support her friend. But Heather has realized that she tends to help a little too much, and it has an effect on her that she's feeling in her body, where she feels run down or drained, okay, physically, emotionally drained by trying to help her friend too much. And her friend's scared. You know, her friend, life has had some scary moments, as a result of growing up with all this stuff, right? And so these patterns have been scary patterns for her. So, Heather gets really torn. She's like, my friend's really terrified. I feel bad for them. Of course, they have all these issues. They grew up with all this stuff. Like, all that makes sense. But also, Heather has to take care of herself. And what is most helpful is for her to empower this best friend to do their own work. So Heather's trying to decide, I feel drained. That's what Heather's feeling. I feel drained when I'm helping this person a lot. A little bit I can do and still take care of myself. So what Heather decides to do, and you got to listen for the cues. Heather's paying attention to, feeling too drained. She's paying attention to feeling run down. She's feeling also some anxiety. Her mind's thinking about how this person's doing. She's worried. So these are all signs that are showing Heather that it's actually having a negative impact on her. So she really thinks about it. So she decides to have a discussion with her friend and create some boundaries for herself. So she tells her friend, look, I love you. I know you went through a lot in life, but I also know that you're lovable and there's strength in you. And I can help you when you are helping yourself. So when you are ready to do something that's really going to help yourself, such as maybe start some therapy, maybe consider only taking care of yourself for a while and not doing a relationship because you tend to, be in these abusive relationships, and just focus on your own well-being, getting a nice, stable job, and just really finding that stability within yourself. This is what I can do for you. And she's checking in with herself. So Heather's like, okay, I feel comfortable talking to them on the phone to kind of boost them up every couple of days, and texting. That works for Heather. And Heather's like, I'm not comfortable having them stay with me. That's too much. So what Heather is comfortable with, giving them some phone number for resources within the community of organizations that help support people. You know, that I've talked about it many times. You can call the domestic hotline, and they will give you numbers of organizations that will help you get jobs, that will help you, find housing help and all kinds of support. So it's not about Heather doing it. It's about Heather checking in with herself and seeing what she needs to be honest with herself. What makes her not feel stressed out, worried, too tired and drained? Like, what feels comfortable that she can do and say, here, I can do these things for you, and that's it. So Heather's got to have a little bit of fight for herself. Let's say she's codependent and she's always done too much, right? So she might need to have a strong conversation with this best friend. She might need to say, look, I love you fiercely, fiercely. And I know you love me too, and I need you to hear this, because I have realized that it really stresses me out when I try to do too much for you, and I know you are a powerful person. This is what I can do to help you. But I expect you to take care of yourself. And you can decide how you're going to do it, but something that actually creates some really positive change for yourself. It is your choice. I'm not going to be upset if you decide not to do it. I love you. I'm going to work on just respecting what you decide to do. But this is all I can do and still take care of myself, because I don't want to feel drained or, like it's wearing me down to try and be there for you, because that's not good for me. I know you love me. It's not healthy. And I want to see you be a badass, right? I want to see you do that. I know you can do it. I want to see you take those powerful reins in life. I want to see you, be willing to be feisty for yourself and find that internal strength. Okay? So she really has this strong conversation with her friend, and she sets the boundaries. And she may need to continuously tweak the boundaries. Anytime she starts to feel a little too much, she may need to reassess what she can and cannot do. And so that's what I want to say today about when we give over our power to other people, or when we do too much, when we deplete ourselves, it is a reflection of kind of giving over our power. Our personal power is about taking care of yourself, being in your own strength. And when you are in your own strength, Heather is going to help that friend. That friend's going to feel it. That integrity is going to help that friend. So it's very, very, very powerful. When we do this for people, you will impact them so much more than if you did the work for them. And I speak about these things because this is how I live my life. And I love sharing it because I have seen incredible things happen with people anytime I took my power. And I really pushed at them and said, look, you can be in your power too. I love you so much, but I know you can do it. And I've pushed people in these ways. And anyone that knows me, they will agree. But I feel really good about that part of myself, and I've seen it work. And anytime that you put that responsibility for that person back onto them and say, you can do it, you take care of this, you are empowering them. And let go of the idea there should be any guilt, there should be anything. Feel good about empowering them, allowing them to get strong within themselves. Feel good about being in your power for yourself, so you will be happier in life and be healthier. So that's my story today about giving over your power and my examples. And I want to read to you about one of the shows here at KPCALP in Petaluma, and it is called Live Crashing Head Folds. It is on Thursdays, hosted by Mona from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Live Crashing Head Folds is a weekly radio program playing all forms of experimental music, from academic and fine art down to home-taped noises and industrial crud. 2 hours of music and its opposites. Bring your own questions and leave with the new ones. So that sounds like a really fun show you can tune into. I really appreciate you tuning in today. You can always go to my website and also contact me through my website. My website is dynamicchange-wellness.com, and there's a way to email me. My email is dcwellness88@gmail.com. dcwellness88@gmail.com. If there's something you would like to discuss about topics that I've spoken about, you can go to my YouTube channel and see all the shows. And they all break it down. They're a little bit, they're very therapeutic. So it's like free therapy. They're really showing you how you can adapt, different patterns and heal different patterns and shift them and create new healthy patterns, thoughts, behaviors. There's a lot of guided meditation within it. So my YouTube channel is Michelle Love with Dynamic Change and Wellness. And subscribe if you like it. And I hope your week is amazing. And I hope that I've given some clarity today. I feel like I gave you some really good information and understandings around what being trauma-informed really means and how trauma affects the nervous system. And also, there are techniques, which I've introduced them in other shows, and I'll keep in future shows introducing it, how you can regulate the nervous system from trauma to resolve that unresolved trauma. Trauma therapy is amazing. I really honor those therapists. Anyone that's working with the people, I'm very grateful to them. And so really understanding about trauma, I think it's a good thing to, Google, get some understanding around, just to know that if you are feeling stress, if you're feeling that your nervous system gets really stuck in fight or flight quite a bit, that your vagus nerve that regulates our fight or flight and regulates our nervous system is not kicking in the way it is meant to operate, there's techniques for resolving that. There are ways that we can work on regulating ourselves, handling trauma responses and triggers, and having healthier, happier lives.